Good day and welcome to this session on CMMC entitled Understanding CMMC 2.0, New Rules, Guidelines, and Timelines. I'm Gary Perkins with CISO Global, the company that believes cybersecurity is a culture, not a product, and I'll be your host today, as I have a couple of very experienced gentlemen here with me, and we're going to cover what you need to know to get your organization on the path to compliance. Thank you to each of you for joining us here today. I know that by planning in advance, you can avoid any CMMC surprises. We'll be happy to take your questions as time permits, and we'll circle back on any we miss. However, please note there is a 1-minute delay between what you hear on the line and us having a chance at seeing what you've written in the chat. I am super excited to have seasoned veterans Tom Cupples and Ben Bryan here with me today. Tom from the perspective as an expert on CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, and Ben providing his experience as an organization seeking compliance. And they're both going to offer you their best advice on how you can ensure success on your path to compliance and highlight some of the common challenges. Please understand, though, there's a significant amount of information that is covered within the scope of CMMC, and we can't cover it all in this one session, but we'd happily work with you on your CMMC project and ensure you're covered. We're going to cover the reality that is CMMC, what it is and who's in scope, and some of the challenges leading up to present day. We'll look at the timeline of the program rollout, main components, and the steps you need to take right away to prepare. Now is the time to engage a partner with helping you realize your CMMC dreams. Now, this content will be available after the session, and if you're enjoying the session, feel free to tell your friends during or after. We'll also have blog posts, including the ones that are already there, and more materials posted going forward. Now, before I get any initial thoughts from our experts, as is customary now, I've reached out to ChatGPT right again just to see if it's improved its sense of humor. I'm gonna hint it didn't. So I asked it to tell me a joke about CMMC, and it said, "Why did the CMMC auditor bring a ladder to the cybersecurity conference? Because they heard the security was on a higher level." And I'm like, what? You gave me that same joke around PCI. I think it plagiarized itself. And so I accused it of that. I said, look, you used that one for PCI last time, and it apologized for the repeat and said, let me try and come up with a new one. And it said, why did the CMMC consultant always carry a pencil? So that it could, because they wanted to draw secure conclusions. And I'm like, oh, again, we've proved yet again, comedians, your world is safe. AI is not in danger of replacing you. Okay, enough with that. I'm going to introduce the folks on this call and dive right in. First, we have Tom Cupples. He's a security controls assessor and senior cybersecurity trainer at CISO Global. He's a subject matter expert on CMMC and certified to the highest level, which is CCA with qualifications met. I'm very pleased to have with us here today also Ben Bryan, who is the information systems security officer from Gold Belt. Gold Belt's a fascinating organization that serves a variety of industries. And with their focus on federal government contracting, it's kind of easy to see how they're prime candidates for CMMC. I'm going to provide a bit of background, then I'm going to turn it over to the experts. So CMMC is something that's been around for a number of years. The current version 2.0 was released in November 2021 and lists required controls into level 1, level 2, and level 3. Now, if your company currently has a contract with the DoD or plans to, you need to be assessed and be certified at the appropriate level. But wait, there's more. You don't even have to contract directly with the DoD. If you're a subcontractor, someone who's working for someone the DoD does business with, then you also need to be certified. And one question I would ask you to do a quick knowledge check. Do you know what a DIB, a FCI, or CUI are? How about a CDI, DCMA, or DSC? I'll be honest, even I can't keep track of all the acronyms. I had to laugh in one case because on the website it said the CMMC uses the terms DSC rather than DIB, presumably because more acronyms are better. But folks, not everything you read, including that statement on the internet, is true. Better to get it from the experts like Tom to help chart your path and achieve compliance. What I do know is if you're lucky enough to only need to be certified at level 1, there's only 17 controls there. But at the level 2 and level 3, there's 110 and 130 controls respectively. And level 2 includes all of level 1, and level 3 includes all of level 1 and 2. But I took a look at the 17 controls, and they really are what I would like to consider hygiene, or as Tom puts it, foundational. including things like limiting system access to authorized user. That seems to be a no-brainer. Or limiting physical access to the same, or making sure to create a log for visitors and ensure that they're escorted, or update your malicious code protection mechanisms, things like that. So in short, the CMMC represents a set of security controls that you have to meet and be able to show with proof of compliance with certification from a third party before you're able to do business with any part of the DoD. Tom, when does that go into effect? And is it a one-time thing, or do you have to recertify? Look, I just have so many questions.
Well, that's a very good question. And I don't believe that it's completely been answered yet. We've gotten some guidance from that. But before I get into that, Ben, let me bring you in here. I know that I don't want to throw around a bunch of acronyms that everybody doesn't understand, but basically, CMMC is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It's been around since at least 2019. Some of it goes back even to the executive order from President Obama in 2009. And so it's been evolving over time, and it's nowhere near the way it was then now. So and we still recently just got the proposed rule released. And I'll get into that in a minute. But Ben, if you want to talk a little bit about your background with CMMC, and tell us a little bit about what issues you think that you might be encountering and how you're going to take care of those and deal with them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Gary. Appreciate the introduction. I think some of the things that we run into in industry is the feeling, is this real? And now the proposed rule is out. It is real. It is something that we have to comply with. There are folks that still have the mentality from 2017, just wait and see what happens. I've been part of that. I think a lot of people have been a part of that. And now we have to move the chains. So I think one of the very first challenges is, one, are you required to have this, right? Contractual requirements, review your contractual requirements. And that's the basis. For me personally, executive sponsorship, that's so huge because it's a real thing. It affects your contracts. It affects your ability to bid on contracts and even maintain contracts potentially, or being a good partner, a good subcontractor. So those are the initial things that I would say that really need to focus on as a basis in this environment.
All right. Thank you for that. I will give a little bit of a timeline here and try to explain a little bit about how this has worked. First, a little bit of history. As was mentioned by Gary, the updated 2.0 version of CMMC came out in November of 21. And since that stage, it has been simplified from the 5 hygienes previously down to 3 levels of level 1 being foundational, level 2 advanced, and level 3 expert. And so depending on whether or not you're dealing with only FCI or both FCI and CUI, and what level of those areas you need to be certified is determined by your contract. So the contract proposal that will come out, the request for proposal will say in there that you need to be certified at a given level. And in order to bid for that contract, you must then have that certification. And certainly have to have it in order to get the contract. Now, this is a phased-in process. It is not just going to drop the hammer tomorrow and then everybody's out of business if you don't get it done. There's going to be a minor window to work with. First of all, you need to know that the proposed rule came out the day after Christmas last year, but nobody was paying attention. And then there was a 60-day period for public comments that kicked in at that point, which will end on February 26th, which is just a few days away. So once that is done, they will look at those comments. They have the possibility of making some changes. Likely they will not. They will then submit, likely in the beginning, a couple of weeks of March, the final rule. In that final rule, they will create an update to the DFARS clause 7021, that states CMMC is a requirement. When that update goes into effect, that's when the timeline starts. For the first 6 months, phase 1. During that phase, you will be able to continue to self-attest at both levels 1 and 2. Okay, just for that 6-month period. There will be then, following that, 6 months after the beginning of that initial period, then everyone will have to have an actual third-party certification for level 2. Level 1 remains a self-attestation. That's if you're only using FCI in your environment. If you have any CUI, controlled unclassified information, you have to be certified at minimally at level 2. And that does require a third-party assessment. So you have to have all 110 controls in place and functioning and be able to prove that. So then at the 18-month period, the ideal will be that absolutely everybody level 2 and level 3 will need to be certified. Level 3 is certified specifically by the DoD. And so they are the third party at that point. Okay. So only the DoD themselves have the authority to give you a level 3 certification. Now, if you're familiar with the CyberAB, there are several parties involved. They have different individuals and they have different organizations, and they all have different functions. First of all, there are the companies that are looking to get the certification. They call these OSCs, organizations seeking certification. So if you're one of those, then you'll need to contract with a C3PAO, which is a CMMC third-party assessment organization, in order to be able to get that certification, or at least be assessed for that certification. And then you will go through the assessment process. And the ones that will be doing the assessment for the C3PAOs are the assessors, and there's a couple of different levels. First of all, there is the CMMC Certified Professional. This is a person who gets certified and can serve on an assessment team. There's several requirements that they have to go through to become certified, which we may or may not have time to get into a little bit later. And then there's CCA, and the CCA is the level of assessor that is required in order to be a lead assessor for a C3PAO. These are the people that do the assessments, verify on behalf of the CyberAB that you are certified at the proper level, and then pass that information off to the DoD. So that timeline is coming up fast. So we're looking at generally the first quarter of 2025. This is going to be full force. There's not going to be any way to get around it. We obviously don't know the exact date at this point until the final product comes out, which will be in a few days, a couple of weeks maybe. But once that clock starts ticking, there's no turning back. All the wishes that some have had that this would not come to fruition, those wishes are dashed at this point. You will have to do it. So, Ben, I want to kick it back to you for a moment. What have you been doing to get prepared? And what are some of the things that maybe you could suggest to others that would help them to maybe have an easier time at getting prepared?
Well, wait a second. And what my question is fairly similar. It's like, Tom, you're dropping TLAs and FLAs all over the place, 3 and 4 letter acronyms. It really feels like they've made this too complex for the average organization to wade through. So I was going to ask Tom, but perhaps Ben, you can comment on this as well. Like, where do you think most organizations are in their readiness?
I think honestly, Gary, it varies. If you haven't started now, you're kind of late. That's the truth.
No, honestly, because when would you make the budget request for the stuff that you want for 2005? You would start planning it in 2023.
Right.
You get the money in 2024. You use it to implement your stuff, and it would be in effect for 2025. So it's true. Folks could be behind the gun already.
I think that's true. I think as we probably discussed before, is that people are going to dip into a discretionary budget. It's going to be an expense that wasn't planned for, so it's going to push other projects out of the way. And frankly, it should be a priority because it will inhibit you from obtaining new contracts. And if you're in the business of doing business with the federal government, you want to maintain that. You want to maintain those relationships, and you want to build your business. So it might be a tough pill to swallow for many organizations, but now's the time. And going back to Tom's question, there are some things you can do right now. If you're doing the basic hygiene or the foundational stuff, that's good. That's really good. Build on that. Policies, procedures, tighten those up. If you're ISO 27001, even better. There's a lot of things that can help you get ahead of this, even if you think you're behind. I would also suggest partnering up with a practitioner, a company. Consulting is going to be your best friend in the short term to get you ahead. They're going to help you choose a technical design based upon your organizational structure, the flow of CUI within your organization. And if you have to go the managed service provider route, then maybe that's how you go. Maybe you can do it in-house. But documentation, that's a huge percentage of this. I think it's somewhere around 45% is documentation of process, procedure, policy, how you're doing it to get through this. The other things are technical implementations. And I could kick it over to Tom. Tom knows more about that, I think, than I do, if I have my percentages right.
Well, I don't know exactly what the percentage is between the two because they all work together. But I will say that most of the assessments that I have done, the biggest shortfall has been documentation. Either they don't have the documentation or the documents that they do have do not match what their actual practice is. So that is going to be the key to getting through the assessment. Proper documentation, policy and procedure, system security plan at the absolute minimum, and then whatever is in those documents, it's what you're going to be tested against. And so when the assessor comes in and says to the systems engineer, show me how you do this, they already looked at that document. And if what they show them doesn't match what the document says, the points are gone for that one. So it need to make sure to have everything over documented and then train your people to follow those procedures. And that will help in quite a bit of detail. The other part I would suggest, make sure that the organization that you choose has someone who is an expert in the assessment process. So they know what to expect. So they know what they would be looking for when they went in and did the assessment. So they'll be able to tell you what you need to do to be prepared to actually pass the assessment. So Ben, any follow up on that? Anything I missed?
No, I think you're absolutely right there. Documentation is key, and you're held to the standard in which you say you're operating. And I think one of the biggest things is knowing where your assets are. It's a huge challenge, and if you haven't been doing it,
yeah, it's the old adage: if you don't know what you have, you can't possibly be securing it, right?
That's right. If you don't, right, you don't know what you don't know, and if you don't know what you have, you can't protect it. Absolutely, that's 100%. So you got to start somewhere. If you're not doing it, do it now. Create that inventory. However it works in your organization. If it's managed by a specific department, generally it's IT. It could be finance. It could be HR. Depending on your size and complexity or how the organization's structured, those are the partners that you're going to have to work with to kind of manage this process, because those folks are going to get interviewed too, potentially, if they are handling CUI. So that's another part of the process.
Yeah, and I probably this would be a good time to talk about those assessors and how you know you can trust them. Okay, because they have gone through a rigorous process, and not only rigorous as in the type of work that they have to do to get trained and to get the experience, but the amount of money that is invested into the process. Every step along the way, there's a little bit of money involved. The organization itself, just to sign up to be a candidate C3PAO, is $6,000. Okay, and then renewals on that are $5,000 every year. For the individual, they have to come in with the experience, the assessment experience already in hand in some type of assessment. Then they will go in and apply for a CPN or a CMMC professional number. Once they do that, they will then go through a DoD mandatory controlled unclassified information training online. And then they will take the class. And that must be taken through a licensed training provider. You cannot self-study for this. You go through a specific curriculum approved by the CyberAB, and that LPP or licensed public publishing partner has to get that approved. And then once they go through that, they have to take the exam. Once you pass the CCP exam, you then have to begin the process of going through a tier 3 suitability check through the federal government, which is similar to a security clearance. It does go through adjudication, but you don't actually get the security clearance. Excuse me. And that is going on process while you're continuing. If you choose to go on to the CCA level, you cannot work on a project for actual certification unless you have passed that tier 3 assessment. But if you do decide to go on, you go through a similar process again for the CCA. You have to go through a licensed training provider to get the training. Then you have to take another test. Once you take that test, you can get the designation CCA, but there are different levels of CCA. You can have the title CCA just from the fact that you have you've passed the test. Then you get another level once you pass the suitability check. And then the next thing is you finally get what we call the green check mark. That's when you have been given the okay that you've been an assessor on 3 different assessments and that you get your check marks there. Then you can become a lead assessor. So as a CCA without the green check mark, you can be on a team, just like a CCP. But if you don't have the green check mark by your name in the marketplace, you cannot be a lead assessor. Gary, I think we have a question that came in.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just having a hard time getting past when you make reference to C3PAO and wanting to believe that it's a Star Wars fan who came up with that, but was worried about getting sued by Disney. And so they stuck the A in there. But no, my question really is, do you think that there's, with all of the rigorous process that you just discussed, do you think that there's enough third parties out there to certify the number of organizations that require it? Like within the time frame, it just seems kind of unrealistic if so many organizations are leaving it late.
Yeah, right now, if you count it today, there's not enough. That's why we need we need companies to get on board with being a C3PAO But in order for them to even function, they have to have these CCAs and CCPs. And so that's where we really have the biggest need, is to get individuals, assessors, certified so they can go into these companies and actually do the assessments. And you're right. If we did the math on it right now, there's potentially 80,000 companies out there that are going to need to be certified in some way. And right now there are only about 200 CCAs, about 500 CCPs, and 200 of those are the CCAs. So there are not enough people. That is the answer.
Dude, I'm used to being outnumbered, but I don't really like those odds. So what would you recommend what should people be doing right now? Like, what are the first steps that they should be taking?
As an individual?
As representing an organization that does business with DoD.
Oh, okay. What they need to do right now is they need to, first of all, do their own self-assessment against the controls. Then bring in a third
That's good
party.
Advice.
Then bring in a third party to help you out, to verify what you've done yourself. Don't just trust what it's a very expensive process.
Yeah, and you know what?
I
love your approach here, because self-assessments are notoriously generous, right? People will often say, yeah, I think I meet the access requirements for that. But then when you bring somebody else in, they're happy to point out the 67 ways that you suck.
Well, and the thing is, the more you can do for yourself up front, when you do find things that are lacking, you know they're lacking, then you can get on top of those before you actually go out and get a third party. But then you need that third party to come in who has the qualified assessors that do the assessments, so that you know that you've got the right thing in place. Because some solutions are not approved by the DoD that may be very commonly used. For instance, if you're using the basic Google Workspace, the basic Office 365, those don't qualify. There are some higher level versions that do, but you need to make sure that you've got the minimum standard in place. And then understand, when you get in line for that certification process, it's going to be a long wait. Even right now, they're about 3 to 4 months out.
Okay, wait a second. So you're telling me it's like preschool, and before your kid is born, you need to get them on the wait list?
Yeah, pretty much. But you will not be able to get on that wait list until the DoD is convinced that you're properly ready for the assessment. Not that you're going to pass it, but that you're properly ready to go through the assessment.
Yeah, and I really appreciate what you said. So I want to underscore it one more time, because it's exactly the advice I would give. Do a self-assessment, and if you come up with gaps or opportunities there, focus on remediating those. And when you think that you've got those all addressed, that's when you move forward. Otherwise, you're going to be paying for something. Now, if you don't know how to remediate those things, absolutely go out and get some help from somebody. It's going to be way simpler for you, especially if this isn't your core area of expertise. And really allowing somebody who does this full time to do it is better, so that you can focus on delivering value to your clients, right? Get your IT and security needs met by another organization. But yeah, I just see so many hurdles here. I bet you this is a pretty daunting task, and a bunch of folks will just be, scream right up to the end of the deadline there, and then be unable to fulfill contracts and just be looking for some kind of reprieve.
And the way it's looking right now, there will be no reprieve. If you read the language of the actual rule, it is very, even in their response to comments, they're very hard lined on this. And
I'll say it, Tom, you're practically saying it. I can hear it. Resistance is futile.
Well, the thing is, you need to see that they're just, all you have to do is get out on the web or in the news and see all the attacks, cyber attacks that are going on right now against multiple countries, and multiple companies, it's getting more and more and more dangerous out there. And just for the sake of, even if you weren't going to be a DoD contractor, getting your house in order in this process would be very valuable to your assets, to protecting your assets.
You're giving me tingles, Tom, because I totally agree. Something's got to assist us in raising the water level across the country and helping all organizations enforce those most basic security controls. And the funny thing is, it's no coincidence, if you look across all of the different standards and frameworks and best practices, there's themes and patterns that emerge. It's like, don't let people into your data center who don't belong there. Shocker, right? Same thing logically. But we see some pretty abhorrent practices there. Like, people are still allowing remote access direct from the internet without even MFA or anything. That's just a recipe for disaster. And so if something has to fix this problem, it'd be nice if people would wake up and spontaneously realize or find religion around security and just go off and do it. But otherwise, it's going to be the laws that get us there. And I think that this is a really good example. And it's just starting with DoD, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't spread from there.
Yeah, the different organizations or the different branches within the Department of Defense, as well as things like Department of Education, Department of Transportation, they're all doing their own similar, processes.
That's the best thing about standards, man. There's so many of them.
And that's the other thing. You use the word standard. All of this is based on something that's been out for a very long time. It's called NIST SB 800-171. Okay, the 110 controls of Chapter 3 of that is what all of this is based on. So if you go and look at that and compare what it says in there to what you have in your environment, that is your self-assessment. And literally all that costs you is time, okay? Just time to make sure that you're ready. But that has to be the minimum level of work that you do. Most organizations, and when I say most, I'm looking at probably, in a conservative figure, 80% are close. They're not close.
Sorry, did you say they are close or they aren't close?
Are not close.
You had my hopes raised there for a second. I thought that everybody was nearing the finish line. They'd be there in a couple of weeks. No,
unfortunately not. In fact, the reason that CMMC became having to have a certification by a third party came into this is because this practice or this process has been out for some time, and it started out with, please do this. Then it was, you will do this. And now it's, you'll do this or else. So that's really how it's evolved. They wanted it to be done voluntarily, but since it's not being done voluntarily, they put the teeth behind it.
So Ben, I have to ask you, I know we're going to be running out of time here at some point, but doesn't this feel like a punitive measure, or is this in the category of necessary evils?
I think this is a necessary evil. Absolutely. I think there's an obligation here. If you're going to do business with the government and you're part of the defense industrial base, you're part of that mesh, right? So it's the weakest link is going to get hit, and whether you're a prime or a sub or two-tiered or however the arrangement is, it's a weakest link scenario. And if we can tighten it up, if we can flip what Tom's saying and go from the 80-20 to the other way, we'll be in much better shape. But yes, absolutely. I think the government had to come down on the contractors and say, hey, you guys need to really, really take this seriously. We have too many attacks. We're losing stuff via information just being sent out. We're having all kinds of crazy espionage and stuff through this. It really needs to stop. And it's got to start with the contractors.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that, right? This is all in the name of supply chain security or third-party risk management. I mean, you can choose, you can make a choice whether you wish to do business with the DoD or not. Yes, no, and then you won't have to do this right now, but it feels like you're delaying the inevitable because it feels like other organizations are coming around, and before too long, this won't be the exception, but more likely eventually the norm. Well, again, I agree. My concerns are primarily that so many organizations out there maybe have a single IT person that also does their security. Hopefully not when they're servicing clients like DoD, but they really struggle to make sense out of all of the different controls. It's funny because when security experts see it, it's like, well, naturally, it's very simple. Don't you see it? It's written right here. It's like in plain English, because we all talk about threat actors exploiting vulnerabilities. That's normal. No, it isn't. And then we throw in all the acronyms and jargon, things like that. So I think it's almost written in code for some folks. So they really need somebody to help, shepherd them through the process and help make sense of it, especially if they don't have the expertise within their teams to do so. Tom, do you have any other thoughts that you want to share?
The only thing is
position the viewers for success on their CMMC journey.
The only thing I would wrap up here with is just simply to say, make sure you get in started as soon as possible now that the reality is hit. Do your work up front. It's going to cost you more up front, you think, but in the end, it's going to be a lot less than what you'll spend at the end if you go through the whole process and you're not prepared and you spend the money on the assessment, then you still have to go back and do the same work. So
I guess the thing that you put the fear of God into me about is I wouldn't want to be stuck in that log jam of all the other people that have left it way too late, and we're all jockeying for position to the front, and you're watching revenue slip away that may be integral to your business's survival.
That's correct. There's a lot of these contracts are very lucrative for companies, and if they were to lose that contract, it in some cases might be the end of the company. So it's very important to get into the game as quickly as possible. We can't do anything about the fact that you weren't in the game earlier. We can only move forward from here. And so getting started today would be the best thing to do.
I love that. Man of action. Execute. It seems like a good place to start. Ben, any other thoughts?
No, that's just a very, I agree with you and Tom wholeheartedly. Start now. That's my biggest advice to anybody out there. Start now. If you need help, seek help. There's partners out there. There's folks that know what they're doing. Reach out to them, vet them. See the marketplace, see what's out there. If you're looking for that certification, start interviewing C3PAOs. See what they're about. They can help you. I mean, there is a network out there to help organizations get through this. It's going to be tight for a lot of folks, but we'll make it through it.
Awesome. I would add, don't forget the R2DA2s as well. But thank you very much, folks. That's been our time for today. It went by so quickly, but I do want to respect people's time. I know we are all very busy, as well as thank you all for joining to hear about CMMC and what you need to do to prepare. I hope you enjoyed your time with us here today, and we'll come back again. And I'd very much like to thank both Tom and Ben for offering their expert wisdom in what can be a very challenging area for organizations trying to raise their security posture. But we have the expertise to assist you with your CMMC needs, so just give us a call at CISO Global. Let us demonstrate how cybersecurity is a culture, not a product, and have a fantastic rest of your day.